In the 7th year of serving a prison sentence for Ethan Foster, I was released early for good behavior. When I walked out of prison, Ethan held up a priceless pink diamond and proposed to me. Everyone praised him for never abandoning me. It was not until the night before the wedding that I learned his real wedding gift to me was putting my virginity up for auction. The starting bid was $1. Ethan's friends burst into laughter. "Ethan, your bride just got out of prison, and she's carrying all that bad luck with her, so I bet she won't even sell for $1. Exactly. You get to enjoy your wedding night with your lover Chloe, while leaving trash like this for us." He sat in the shadows, his expression indifferent. "If she doesn't sell, then make her free, because if Grandpa hadn't said I could only get the company's shares by marrying her, I'd think she was too filthy to even look at." I heard Chloe argued with Ethan for days over Evelyn and wouldn't even let Ethan into her bed, and if he hadn't come up with the idea of auctioning off the wedding night, Chloe would probably still be mad. She upset Chloe the moment she got out, so she really does deserve a lesson. Ethan gave a disdainful sneer. "What kind of lesson is this? Evelyn spent 7 years in prison, 7 full years without touching a man, so she must be dying of loneliness by now. And she has always had strong needs, since she used to tempt me so badly that I wouldn't leave the bedroom for days." Ethan kept looking down and scrolling through his phone, then suddenly curled his lips and said, "Found it." After saying that, he lifted his phone. "There's video proof. This is a video from before Evelyn went to prison, and back then we were together every day, but she still wouldn't let me rest. Now that she's been lonely for 7 years, I'm sure she's even wilder." Broken, breathy moans came from the phone, making everyone present flush. Then his friends whistled like hooligans, and their laughter and shrieks rose wave after wave. Ethan's expression stayed calm, as if the person at the center of the topic had nothing to do with him. Amid the overwhelming mockery, tears rolled down my face, and my whole body trembled uncontrollably. Ethan was not like this before. I was a child sponsored by the Foster family, and I had followed Ethan around since I was little. In name, I was his playmate, but in reality, I was a bodyguard trained specifically to protect him. When I was 18, he took my body while drunk. From then on, I had another identity: Ethan Foster's bed partner. I knew I could never climb into the Foster family's world, so I never dared to have any other thoughts. But Ethan refused to accept that. When he was young, his love was passionate and sincere, and he swore again and again that he would marry me and give me a home. During those years, everyone in the city knew it. The eldest son of the Foster family, Ethan Foster, had a girl he loved down to his bones. Until Ethan was kidnapped. I broke into an abandoned factory alone to save him. Everything had been going smoothly, but just before we left, one of the kidnappers touched my calf. That one touch made Ethan's expression change on the spot. He chopped off the kidnapper's right hand, then stabbed a knife into his heart. Even though the Foster family was powerful and influential, killing someone still meant paying with a life. Ethan was the only son, the lifeblood of the Foster family. Because of that, Grandpa Foster came to me and asked me to take the blame and go to prison for Ethan. In return, once I finished my sentence and was released, the Foster family would acknowledge me as their daughter-in-law. Grandpa Foster had shown me kindness, and Ethan was the man I loved. After sitting in silence for an entire night, I signed the confession. Before I went to prison, Ethan knelt in front of me and cried bitterly. "Evelyn, when you get out, I will make it up to you with the grandest wedding." His vow still rang in my ears, but the man before me was no longer the man from back then. No wonder he often hid from me to make phone calls, and each call lasted all night. No wonder he insisted on sleeping in separate rooms from me, and he would not even eat at the same table with me. No wonder whenever he accidentally touched me, he sprang away as if he had been burned. How ridiculous that I only thought he was having trouble adjusting, so I lay in bed waiting for him in the lingerie he had once loved most. That day, Ethan flew into a rage, dragged me into the bathroom, and threw a steel wool scrubber at me. "You just got out of prison, so it's impossible for you not to be dirty, and we'll talk after you wash yourself clean." After my whole body was scrubbed until the skin peeled, I curled up in the corner, while tears slid down together with blood. Just as my heart was about to die, he carried me back to the bedroom and promised to give me a wedding night I would never forget. Naively, I thought he had finally changed his mind. It turned out he had only thought of an even more humiliating way to shame me. 7 years was too long. So long that the man I loved had become completely unrecognizable. Since that was the case, I would let go. Holding back the sharp pain in my heart, I called Grandpa Foster and spoke numbly. "My wedding night has been put up for auction, Grandpa, and Ethan doesn't love me anymore, so please let me leave." It was nearly dawn when Ethan came home. For once, he entered my bedroom and called my name in a hoarse voice. I had already gone to sleep, and his voice startled me awake, leaving me full of annoyance. But the moment I met his eyes, that anger somehow faded. Ethan and I had once had feelings for each other. When our love had been at its strongest, he had always looked at me with those eyes and said I was the most beautiful girl in the world, the one who moved his heart the most. As if possessed, I reached out and touched his brows and eyes. But when I remembered the filthy things he and his friends had said, my hand stopped halfway, then snapped back. It's late, so hurry up and rest. When he heard me say that, he frowned, but he still coaxed me patiently. Evelyn, I was wrong these past few days, and I didn't take good care of you. I didn't even notice your lips were cracked, so I made you honey water specially. Come on, try some. Sensing something strange about him, I resisted. But as soon as I turned over and got out of bed to run, the man grabbed my calf and dragged me back. I made it with my own hands, so drink it before you leave. He pinched my chin, forced my mouth open, and poured all the honey water into my mouth. Cough, cough. I choked until my face turned red and coughed violently. When I looked up again, Ethan had doubled in my vision, and my head had become heavy and dizzy. He had drugged the water. When I regained consciousness, I was tied to a European-style high-back chair with only a layer of thin gauze draped over me. Several unsightly tags were wrapped around my ankles. Murder, new foster bride, cheap goods. Ethan's assistant had even thoughtfully noted my measurements, accurate to 2 decimal places. The seats below the stage were filled with people, and their gazes fell over me without restraint, as if they wished they could devour me clean with their eyes. Mr. Foster really is thoughtful, since he was worried no one would dare take a murderer like this, so he even let us inspect the merchandise first. Evelyn may be a little older, but her body is seriously amazing, with that tiny waist and those long legs, and I can barely hold myself back now. Although the starting bid is only $1, there are so many rich men and big shots here tonight that who knows how much it'll cost to take her away, so I might as well feast my eyes first. Those filthy words were like countless sharp knives, stabbing straight into me and slicing away my dignity inch by inch. In the shadows at one corner of the auction hall, Ethan and a girl leaned together intimately. That must have been Chloe, the woman his friends had mentioned. I could not lift my eyelids, so I could only narrow my eyes and look over. The girl had long hair and wore a white dress, and from a distance, she looked somewhat like me when I was young. I did not know what she said, but it made the man beside her darken his gaze, his face full of desire. He picked the girl up in his arms and walked straight into the lounge backstage. After he had only taken a few steps, one of his friends asked, "Ethan, your wife is still here, so where are you going?" Without looking back, Ethan threw out one sentence. "Chloe is hungry, so I'm going to feed her." Then he paused and ordered coldly, "Evelyn took the drug, so she won't know what happens tonight, and after the inspection is over, just find someone to throw her back home, but none of you are allowed to disturb my fun." Tears slid silently from the corners of my eyes. My heart kept falling until it fell into a bottomless abyss and made no more sound. Ethan thought that under the effect of the drug, I would not remember anything. But he did not know that so I could better protect Ethan, Grandpa Foster had long ago trained me to resist ether-type drugs. The lounge door closed with a bang. Without Ethan present, the words of the men below the stage became even more explicit. Someone even slowly approached me, the desire in his eyes completely undisguised. The gauze was torn away, and several greasy hands roamed freely over my body at the same time. Just when I was drowning in despair, someone glanced at the lounge door. Perhaps thinking of how Ethan had once protected me, they did not dare to truly do anything. The bitterness in my heart spread little by little. Ethan, who had once been jealous if someone so much as looked at me, now placed me in such a humiliating place and let others bully me. My mind grew hazy, and I did not know when I fell asleep. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying in my own bedroom with my pajamas intact. If not for the faint red marks still left on my wrists, I probably would have thought everything from last night was an absurd nightmare. Before I could gather myself, the bedroom door opened, and more than a dozen people rushed in at once. They hurriedly dragged me up. They did my makeup, while changing me into a wedding dress. Only then did I realize in a daze that the day of my wedding to Ethan had arrived. After I changed into the wedding dress, I discovered that it was not the one I had originally chosen. The neckline of the dress I was wearing was extremely low, and without lowering my head, half of my pale chest could be seen. I was ashamed and angry, and my hands instinctively covered my chest tightly. But the woman in charge was not satisfied and forcefully pulled my hands away. Miss Harper spent a few years in prison, and now she really has no manners at all, because what bride acts so timid at her own wedding and doesn't even fear embarrassing the Foster family? This is the wedding dress Mr. Foster personally chose for you, and he said it suits a woman like you best. I gritted my teeth as tears swirled in my eyes. Life in prison had been extremely hard, but every time I thought that after I got out, I could become Ethan's wife openly and properly, I found the strength to keep going. It turned out the love of our youth had trapped only me from beginning to end. In a daze, I was dragged and shoved all the way to the wedding venue. The guests were all prominent New York families, and they were dressed appropriately. Only I wore a wedding dress that barely covered my private parts, like a ridiculous clown, unsure of what to do under everyone's gaze. As soon as he saw me, Ethan brought the girl from last night forward. This is Chloe, the neighbor girl I grew up with, and she's here today to be your bridesmaid. Now, even his lies were this careless and perfunctory. We had grown up together, so how could I not know whether he had some neighbor girl? What was more, the train of Chloe's bridesmaid dress was a full 10 feet long and covered in rhinestones. On her ring finger was a 14-carat Oppenheimer pink diamond. I remembered it because it was the pink diamond Ethan had used to propose to me on the day I was released from prison. Only back then, he had said the pink diamond ring was expensive, so he would personally put it on me on our wedding day. No bridesmaid in the world was more glamorous than the bride. Unless she was not a bridesmaid, but the woman the groom truly wanted to marry. I did not expose him and simply looked at Ethan's features from across the space between us. The man who had sworn again and again that he would marry no one but me had died long ago. Inside this body now was a completely unfamiliar soul. Perhaps I stayed silent for too long, because Chloe stepped forward and warmly linked her arm with mine. Your figure is seriously amazing, and this wedding dress is such a good choice today, because it shows off your whole body so well that even a girl like me is about to get a nosebleed. The next second, a burst of laughter suddenly rang through the banquet hall. The Foster family's new daughter-in-law really is shameless enough, dressing like that after being in prison, and I have no idea how Mr. Foster could have fallen for her. She came up to a perfectly good wedding dress like this, like some cheap hooker, and she really can't be brought into high society. Mockery louder than the last was like a sharp blade, stabbing straight into my heart and making me hurt so badly that I could barely breathe. My face darkened, and I shoved Chloe away. Since you like it so much, you can wear it instead. Ethan protected Chloe in his arms and frowned, clearly a little displeased.
What do you mean by that?
Chloe was complimenting your figure, so why are you being so passive-aggressive here? You've been in prison so long that you're out of touch with society, and you can't even tell good words from bad. Prison, prison, prison again. Ethan had probably long forgotten that if it were not for me, those two words should have been nailed to him instead. Seeing that my face was still cold, Chloe raised a wineglass to me. What I said just now was wrong. Come on, I'll toast you, and consider it my apology. Staring at the slightly cloudy liquid in the glass, alarm bells went off in my heart. When I looked up again, I realized everyone present had their eyes locked tightly on me. Thinking of last night's cup of honey water, I understood at once. Yesterday was the inspection, and today was the official auction. What? Are you not going to give me this little bit of respect? Chloe urged sweetly, with a hint of grievance in her tone. Drink this wine yourself, I said coldly, because I don't dare drink anything you offer. Chloe's face instantly became very ugly, and she turned to look at Ethan with tears filling her eyes. Ethan, Evelyn, she. Ethan frowned and stepped forward. Evelyn Harper, don't go too far. Chloe only wants to make peace with you, so why do you have to be so aggressive? I looked directly into his eyes and asked each word slowly. What exactly are you trying to do? Guilt flashed through the man's eyes. Then he took the wineglass from Chloe's hand and approached me step by step. I kept backing away until my back pressed against the cold wall, and there was nowhere left to retreat. Ethan Foster, do you want to force it into my mouth again like you did last night? As soon as I finished speaking, he pinched my chin again. The wineglass in his hand was lifted high, the wine sloshed, and the next second, it all poured into my mouth. The cold wine flowed down the corners of my mouth, soaked the front of my wedding dress, then ran into my neck. Soon, under the effect of the drug, my consciousness became blurry again. Everything before my eyes grew shadowy, and Ethan and Chloe's figures twisted in my blurred vision. I wanted to resist, and I wanted to call for help, but my body would not obey me, and my limbs were soft and powerless, so I could only let myself slide to the floor. My reaction stirred up everyone present into a frenzy. They cheered and screamed as they surrounded me in the middle. I did not know who squatted down and blew smoke into my face, and a cold lighter slapped my face hard twice. We finally waited until the official auction, and after seeing you last night, you've been stuck in my head the whole time, making me wish I could have you right away. Baby, Even though you just got out of prison, plenty of people are bidding on you, and I heard the price has already reached 7 figures. The heavy stench of cigar smoke and stale cognac pressed into my nostrils. A hand, greasy, calloused, reeking of expensive cologne, reached out to grab my collar, aiming to rip away the remaining silk of the wedding gown. 7 figures, the man chortled, his breath hot against my cheek. Look at her. Eyes. Completely gone. Mr. Foster really knows how to tame a dog. Ethan stood near the edge of the VIP balcony above, arm wrapped around Chloe's waist. He was sipping champagne, his face illuminated by the ambient glow of the auction stage lights. He didn't even look down. To him, I was an inconvenient ghost from a past he wished to bury, currently being recycled for his entertainment. He forgot one crucial detail. Grandpa Foster had not just trained me to endure toxins, he had trained me to fight through them. The drug Ethan poured down my throat was a synthetic paralytic meant to induce muscle weakness while keeping the nervous system hyper-aware. For an ordinary woman, it was a nightmare of helpless sensation. But during my 7 years in the maximum security wing, a hellhole where survival meant hypervigilance, I had spent every night conditioning my body, burning off nerve toxins through controlled breathing and adrenaline triggers. The man's fingers touched my collarbone. Snap. A sickening crack echoed over the low hum of the crowd. The man didn't even have time to scream before I twisted his wrist back at a 360-degree angle, driving my elbow hard into his windpipe. He collapsed to the marble floor, clawing at his throat, gasping for air that wouldn't come. Silence swept across the grand banquet hall like a tidal wave. The laughter died. The bidding paddles froze in midair. I stood up slowly from the cold floor, tearing off the ridiculous, sheer lace train of the gown. Beneath the ruined dress, my body was lithe, battle-scarred, and standing tall. The vacant, drugged glaze in my eyes vanished, replaced by a cold, pitch-black composure that had once made the city's underground cartels fear the Foster family's private enforcer. Ethan's glass stopped halfway to his lips. His eyes widened in sheer shock. Evelyn? You always were an idiot, Ethan, I said, my voice cutting through the silent room like a honed blade. You spent 7 years enjoying the wealth I paid for with my blood, and you actually believed 7 years in darkness would make me weak. Chloe shrank back behind Ethan, her face turning pale. Ethan, what's happening? You said she was completely docilated. You said the drug would keep her down for 12 hours. Before Ethan could respond, the heavy mahogany double doors of the grand ballroom shattered inward with a thunderous bang. A dozen men in charcoal gray tactical suits flooded the hall, securing every exit with military precision. The guests gasped, scrambling back as the high society gala was instantly converted into a lockdown zone. Walking through the center aisle, leaning heavily on a black cane capped with a silver dragon's head, was the undisputed monarch of the Foster Empire, Grandpa Foster. Behind him walked 3 men in sharp black suits carrying heavy leather briefcases, the chief legal counsel of the Foster Group, the district attorney of New York, and the commander of the state police. Grandpa. Ethan's face drained of all color. He hurriedly rushed down the spiral staircase from the balcony, forcing a panicked smile. Grandpa, what are you doing here? The ceremony. We were just having a small after-party before the main vows. Slap. The heavy oak cane struck Ethan across the shoulder, sending him staggering back into a table of champagne flutes, crashing to the floor in a shower of broken glass and expensive liquor. You disgraceful, brainless whelp, Grandpa Foster's voice roared, echoing off the high vaulted ceilings. I gave you 7 years to grow into a man. I gave you 7 years to build a mind worthy of leading this family. And instead, you turned my house into a brothel and treated our savior like cattle. Grandpa. Ethan scrambled to his feet, wiping blood from his lip, his voice rising in desperate denial. She's just an orphan, a bodyguard. I gave her a home. I gave her clothes. She went to prison to pay back the Foster family's kindness. She's dirty, Grandpa. She's been in prison for 7 years. She doesn't belong in our world anymore. Chloe is the one who belongs here. Chloe rushed down the stairs, falling to her knees beside Ethan, tears streaming down her carefully painted cheeks. Grandfather Foster, please. Ethan did everything for the family. This woman is crazy. Look at what she did to the guest. She's a murderer. I stood in the center of the hall, watching the two of them put on their Pathetic theater. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. Grandpa Foster didn't even glance at Chloe. He stepped past Ethan, walked directly toward me, and did something that made every billionaire in the room hold their breath. The grand patriarch of the Foster family bowed his head deeply to me. Evelyn, the old man said, his voice trembling with genuine remorse and suppressed fury. Forgive me. I thought leaving him in your care would teach him responsibility. I was blind. Grandpa, I said softly, my voice devoid of warmth. I fulfilled my promise to you 7 years ago. I kept your grandson out of an orange jumpsuit. I took the fall. My debt to the Foster family for raising me is paid in full. Now let me go. Go. Ethan scoffed from the floor, his panic turning into ugly arrogance. Where are you going to go, Evelyn? You have no money, no degree, no record. You're an ex-convict. Without me, you're nothing. And besides, Grandpa's will clearly states that I only inherit the 51% controlling shares of the Foster Group if I marry you. You think Grandpa will let you walk? He needs this wedding just as much as I do. Ethan smirked, thinking he had pinned us both against the wall with the corporate bylaws. Grandpa Foster turned around slowly, looking at his grandson, as if he were looking at a piece of garbage rotting on the pavement. You really never read the trust documents, did you, Ethan? Grandpa Foster signaled to the lawyer beside him. Attorney Vance stepped forward, opening his leather briefcase and pulling out a thick, red-stamped legal deed. Mr. Ethan Foster, Attorney Vance announced, his voice reverberating through the silent hall via the house microphone. 7 years ago, before Miss Evelyn Harper entered the state penitentiary, Lord Foster executed an irrevocable living trust. The condition for you to receive the 51% shares was not merely marrying Miss Harper. Attorney Vance adjusted his glasses and read cold, unyielding words. Section 4, Clause B, should Ethan Foster demonstrate moral turpitude, betrayal of trust, or inflict physical and psychological harm upon Evelyn Harper, all inheritance rights of Ethan Foster shall be permanently severed. Furthermore, 51% of the total voting stock of the Foster Group, along with all overseas holding assets, shall instantly and unconditionally transfer into the sole absolute ownership of Miss Evelyn Harper. Ethan froze. The air left his lungs in a sharp, wheezing gasp. What did you say? I said. Attorney Vance looked down at him with cold pity. Miss Evelyn Harper is not your bride, Ethan. As of 5 minutes ago, when the live audiovisual evidence of your attempted human trafficking was transmitted directly to the board of directors, Miss Harper became the majority owner and chairman of the Foster Group. No. That's impossible, Ethan screamed, lunging toward the lawyer. But 2 tactical guards immediately pinned him to the floor, forcing his face against the cold marble. Grandpa, you can't do this to me. I am your blood. SHE is an outsider. A bodyguard. A bodyguard who took a knife for you when you were 12, Grandpa Foster spat, his eyes burning with disgust. A bodyguard who gave up 7 years of her youth so you wouldn't die in a state prison. And how did you repay her? By conspiring with a venomous snake to ruin her. Grandpa Foster snapped his fingers. The district attorney stepped forward, waving a hand to 2 state troopers. Ethan Foster, the DA declared coldly, you are under arrest for human trafficking, conspiracy to commit sexual assault, aggravated drugging, and grand corporate fraud. Wait, Chloe shrieked, backing away toward the rear exit. I had nothing to do with this. I was just invited here. Ethan did everything. He hated her, he told me he was going to destroy her. Miss Chloe Vance, the DA turned his sharp gaze toward her. Don't go anywhere. You are also under arrest for extortion, illegal possession of controlled substances, and accessory to kidnapping. Chloe's face turned ghastly white. Kidnapping? What kidnapping? That was 7 years ago. I took a step toward Chloe. My shadow stretched long across the polished floor, under the harsh spotlights. 7 years ago, I said, my voice smooth and deadly quiet. I went into that abandoned factory to save Ethan. The kidnappers knew our exact route. They knew where the security cameras were turned off. They even knew which side door was unlocked. I looked down at the 14-karat pink diamond ring glistening on Chloe's finger. For 7 years in prison, I had a lot of time to think. I continued stopping, right in front of her. I wondered how a small-time criminal crew managed to bypass the Foster family's multi-million-dollar perimeter defense. It wasn't Until yesterday, when I saw your family's shell company receive a $20 million offshore wire transfer right after Ethan took over the temporary presidency, that the final piece fell into place. Chloe began to shake violently, tears ruining her mascara. You have no proof. We do now. The police commander stepped forward, pulling out a sealed evidence bag containing an old, battered hard drive. We raided your father's estate too. Hours ago, Miss Chloe. We found the original encrypted communications between your father and the kidnapping ring from 7 years ago. You orchestrated the kidnapping to create a crisis, force Ethan into a corner, and eliminate Evelyn. And when Ethan killed that kidnapper, I added, staring directly into Ethan's wide, terrified eyes, it wasn't because he was protecting my calf from being touched. It was because the kidnapper was about to blab that Chloe was the one who paid them. Ethan's head snapped toward Chloe, his eyes bloodshot, his mind shattering under the sheer weight of the truth. Chloe, you set me up? You made me kill that man. Ethan, no. He's lying. They're all lying to you. Chloe whimpered, but Ethan, consumed by wild rage, broke free from the guard's grip for a fraction of a second and lunged at Chloe, grabbing her by the hair. You bitch. I gave up Evelyn for you. I ruined my life for you. Ethan roared, like a rabid dog, punching and tearing at the woman he had idolized for years. The guards quickly tackled Ethan again, dragging him off the screaming, bleeding Chloe, slamming steel handcuffs onto both of their wrists. The banquet hall was dead silent save for the muffled sobs of Chloe and the unhinged ranting of Ethan as they were dragged away in chains toward the waiting police vans outside. The high society guests who had just been bidding on my night shrunk back into the corners, praying their faces hadn't been captured on the security cameras. Grandpa Foster walked over to me, holding out a delicate velvet box. Inside rested a simple, unpolished silver ring, the very first ring I had bought with my own earnings when I was 16, which I had left behind the night I went to prison. It's over, Evelyn, the old man said quietly, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. The Foster empire is yours. I know it cannot replace 7 years of lost life, but I don't want the empire, Grandpa, I said, looking at the silver ring then back at the old man. I spent 7 years behind iron bars paying off a debt I didn't owe. I don't want to spend the rest of my life trapped in another cage, made of gold. Grandpa Foster opened his mouth to speak, but saw the unshakable determination in my eyes. He sighed deeply, his shoulders slumping, looking 10 years older. What will you do? He asked softly. I'm going to live, I replied. I reached out, took my old silver ring, and slipped it onto my thumb. Then I turned my back on the grand ballroom, on the broken glass, on the pink diamond, lying forgotten on the crimson carpet, and walked out into the cool morning air. 6 months later, State Maximum Security Penitentiary, Cell Block C. The heavy iron door slid shut with a deafening clang. Ethan Foster sat on the thin, rust-stained cot, staring blankly at the damp concrete wall. His hair was shaved to the scalp, his hands were calloused and bruised, and his once-tailored designer clothes were replaced by a faded orange jumpsuit bearing a prisoner identification number. Every night, the screams of inmates echoed down the cold, drafty hallway. Every day, he was forced to perform hard labor in the machine shop, his soft hands blistering and bleeding under the relentless sun. He was serving a 25-year sentence without the possibility of parole for conspiracy, murder, and human trafficking. Chloe was in the women's facility, 3 counties over, serving 18 years, her beauty completely withered under the harsh reality of prison life. A guard knocked heavy iron knuckles against the cell bars. Foster, you got a visitor. 10 minutes. Ethan's heart leaped. Grandpa? Did Grandpa finally relent? Did he send the lawyers to bail me out? Ethan scrambled to his feet, pulling at his chains as he was led into the visitation room. He pressed his face against the thick, scratched bulletproof glass, desperately looking at the person sitting on the other side. It was not Grandpa Foster. It was a woman wearing a simple, elegant ivory trench coat. Her dark hair cascaded smoothly over her shoulders, her skin glowing with health and vitality. Her eyes were calm, bright, and completely devoid of hatred or any emotion toward him at all. Evelyn. Ethan gripped the plastic telephone receiver with trembling hands, weeping hysterically against the glass. Evelyn, you came. I knew you still loved me. Ethan sobbed, his voice cracking through the crackling speaker. I was wrong, Evelyn. Chloe tricked me. She used me. I was stupid, I was blind. Please, Evelyn, you own the Foster Group.
Now,
You have the money, the power, the politicians. Get me out of here.
I'll be.
Your bodyguard. I'll be your dog. I'll do anything. Just get me out. I held the receiver casually, listening to his pathetic, desperate begging. Do you know what the hardest part of prison was, Ethan? I asked softly, my voice calm and soothing. Ethan paused, blinking tears from his eyes. What? It wasn't the hard floor, I said. It wasn't the bad food, or the cold winter nights without a blanket. It was the moment I realized that the man I had given my life to protect never existed at all. Ethan slammed his hand against the glass. I can change, Evelyn. We can start over. Remember when we were young? Remember the promises under the old oak tree? The old oak tree was chopped down 3 months ago to expand the new public park I donated to the city, I said flatly. Ethan froze. I didn't come here to save you, Ethan. I continued, looking into his hollow, bloodshot eyes. I came here to drop off something you left behind. I placed a small, transparent plastic bag on the metal counter against the
Glass.
inside was the 14-karat Oppenheimer pink diamond ring, now shattered into dull, worthless dust under the weight of a hydraulic press. You thought my wedding night was worth $1, I said softly, standing up from my chair. In reality, Ethan, your entire life wasn't even worth the dirt on my shoes. Evelyn, Evelyn,
Don't leave me.
Evelyn, Ethan screamed, hammering his fists violently against the bulletproof glass until his knuckles bled. I didn't look back. I walked out of the visitation center, pushing open the heavy steel doors. Outside, the sun was shining brightly, casting a warm golden light over the open green hills. A light breeze caught my hair, carrying the scent of wild jasmine and freedom. I took a deep breath, smiled, and stepped into the sunlight.